All right, guys, welcome back to another podcast on MMAUnhinged. Today, once again, we're joined by Oscar, and we've got such a huge show to talk about. As you can see in the background, Volkov, Aspinall, UFC London this weekend. Oh, man, we're in for a treat.
I'm ecstatic for this card, man. I feel like the UFC is finally going back on the road for their Fight Night events, and we've waited 2 years now for that to happen. And now they're back to doing the ceremonial weigh-ins, back to doing the big press events, and it's really an exciting time because now that the pandemic is behind us, we can really get back to normal and have a ton of fun in international markets, specifically the UK in the O2 Arena. It's going to be really fun, but unfortunately, we did not do an episode last week, and we were both under the weather, and we would have talked about UFC 272 and the Ankalaev Santos card. So we'll just talk about those two fights right now, briefly, before we go into this past weekend's events.
Here we go. So obviously the main card, main event was Colby Covington, getting the United decision win over Jorge Masvidal. The only trouble I saw in this fight was for Covington is that he did get clipped, and that was the only worry. Is that I was thinking, we've seen him get dropped in the past, but his chin, man, he could take a hell of a shot, and we've seen it in this fight. We saw it in the Kamaru Usman fight. He could take a really big shot, but it's the wrestling. What we saw in this fight is a long time wrestler and someone who's a striker. We've seen someone who's grew up trying to be a wrestler, succeeded as being a wrestler, and that was a massive difference. Years of experience in wrestling there, and it just completely showed. And I felt like Jorge Masvidal knew that going into this fight that Colby was the better wrestler, and he just needed to defend the takedowns. Unfortunately, Colby Connors just had his number, and I felt like that's how the sparring went, and we truly knew what happened now.
Yeah, we both believe that Colby Covington was a nightmare matchup for Jorge Masvidal, and he was. We both bet money on Colby Covington by decision, and we both cashed those bets without much of a sweat, really, besides that fourth round. That fourth round really brought me out of my seat. But Colby Covington has proven many times that the guy has an unbelievable chin and recovers really well. Colby Covington, say what you want about his antics outside of the cage or during his promos, the guy has heart, man. This guy fights at an unbelievable pace, and his opponent will most likely break on unless the name is Kamaru Usman. But Jorge Masvidal is no Kamaru Usman. He simply was outmatched here in the wrestling department, and on the feet, he was winning the majority of the fight. So Colby Covington is looking to be in his prime. I think this guy will earn a rematch with trilogy with Kamaru Usman at this point. I really don't see many people beating him. So Colby Covington is here to stay at the top of the division. And now we'll move on to the co-main event. Somebody else that had a really good performance throughout 5 rounds, Rafael Dos Sanchos. He fought the short replacement opponent, Renato Moicano. Dos Sanchos completely mauled him. He really put a beating on Moicano. This was just gnarly to see near the end of the fight, because you definitely could have stopped that fight if you wanted to. But Moicano proved that he was still in the fight when he won that 5th round. That 5th round, we saw Dos Sanchos take pity on Renato, because Renato has just been knocked down with a head kick after being mauled and just ate vicious ground pound. I've always questioned Moicano's durability here, but somehow, someway, this guy stuck it through. And he looked good because Dos Sanchos had mercy on him. I'll say that. But yeah, not a great performance from Moicano. Obviously, the guy had to fly from Brazil, cut a ton of weight on short notice. Of course, he wasn't going to look great, and he wasn't prepared for 5 rounds. So I think we maybe overplayed Moicano's chances on the show, because Dos Sanchos looked unbelievable.
Yeah, as you mentioned there, in that 5th round, it looked like, it showed that, RDA took a little step back. I think they were talking about it on the broadcast, and I kind of agreed. I think it was the respect that RDA had for Moicano that stopped him from really, pressuring, finishing that fight. If RDA wanted to pressure him and finish that fight, he could have. It was there. I think, what was it? I forgot who the referee was, but he said, you've got 30 seconds.
Mark
and that's
Roberts.
it. And There you go, Mark Goddard. What a fantastic performance Mark Goddard had down in this fight. If RDA put on a little bit of pressure, get him up against the cage, just firing shots, the fight was over. But RDA had too much respect, and credit to Moicano. Even though he lost, I think his stock has gone up massively.
I agree with you, man. People were calling him the Brazilian Zombie after the event, and he earned the nickname. And we'll move on to Bryce Mitchell's unanimous decision victory over Edson Barbosa. This was complete domination. This is the worst performance Barbosa's had since the Khabib fight. This was a situation where I didn't think Bryce Mitchell was this good of a wrestler, and it turns out he is, man. This guy has that farm strength on his side, and he put it to good use here. And not just that, in that first round, he knocked down Edson Barbosa. That is very difficult to do, especially when you don't really have much of a striking background. So Bryce Mitchell is now mixing his wrestling and his striking, and that's a very dangerous proposition for the featherweight division. He's now 15-1. He's on a really good win streak here, and it's time for a step up for Bryce Mitchell. I say you give him, I would say maybe Giga Chikadze is the fight at this point. I would say that's probably the fight at this point. Bryce Mitchell is now in a spot where he may be I say 2 or 3 fights away from a title shot. So Barbosa is definitely on a decline here, but Bryce Mitchell is just completely dominated him.
Yeah, I got to agree. But when we were talking about this in the preview, we gathered that if Barbosa gets taken down, there's a chance that Bryce Mitchell can hold him down. But the way it's just the way Bryce Mitchell done it. He knocked him down. He controlled him. He got 4 out of 4 takedowns. The last time we seen Barbosa control that, as you mentioned, was against Khabib. But I feel like he done it even better than Khabib, which was crazy. So. But Barbosa had no answers for the grappling of Bryce Mitchell, and no answers for the striking as well. As you mentioned, he knocked him down, which was the most surprising thing is Barbosa getting knocked down. That's where he shines, his striking. That's where he does his best work. Bryce Mitchell is known as a grappler, wrestling, and he knocked him down. This was probably the best performance I've seen from Bryce Mitchell, and he deserves to get that top 5, top 3 fight. And as you mentioned, Giga Chikadze, definitely, that's a great fight next.
All right, moving on. We had Kevin Holland's debut at welterweight versus Alex Cowboy Oliveira. And honestly, I give no chance to Oliveira on the show. I said Kevin Holland was my most confident pick of the night. I picked him to win via second round TKO, but man, that first round was tough. He got clipped by Oliveira. He got taken down several times. He got his back taken at the end of the round. I was thinking Kevin Holland may not be cut out for this weight class. In just 30 seconds into the second round, he clips Alex and puts him away with a vicious elbows. Kevin Holland probably needed a little more time to adjust to the weight class. And I think this was a learning experience for him. And I think he has to work on his defense after this fight. But nonetheless, he's still improving. He's still pretty young. So I still think Kevin Holland can be a ranked guy in this division. I say you give him the loser of Neil Magny versus Matt Griffin.
Yeah, I said Holland in this fight, the composure was it the last few seconds of the round when Oliveira had his back and he had that that submission in, he's putting his thumbs up. The composure that Kevin Holland has at that moment it's just admirable. But a fantastic fight for just to watch, entertaining fight. As you mentioned there, the first round, it was tough. It was tough for Holland. Wasn't looking good for him with the striking and the stand-up. Oliveira was clipping him. Holland was rushing him with his hand, his chin up, his hands not protecting what was coming back. And something happened on that stool for him to realize, it's not going well. And he just came out and blitzed him. And a perfect punch, perfect setup, and they got the job done. A good performance, but maybe there's definitely things to work on, and maybe as you talked about, the adjustment to 170 was maybe the mishap in the first round.
Yeah, moving on to Sergey Spivak versus Greg Hardy. Sergey Spivak simply big brothered Greg Hardy in this spot. We knew Greg Hardy's grappling was abysmal, and as soon as Spivak got that takedown, he did not let Greg Hardy breathe for a second. Greg Hardy may have gotten up, but he got slammed down back to the mat like a child. And eventually he got mounted and absolutely mauled. And he was finished via TKO here. And I thought the referee had just waved off the fight, but it appeared that Greg Hardy may have been put out by those roundabout shots. The guy was very confused when he was getting up.
Yeah, we talked about it before the fight, and we said we knew this was going to happen. Complete domination from start to finish, and we talked about and we said Greg Hardy's not UFC caliber, and this fight proved it. And since that, he has been released from the UFC, and I think it was the correct decision, the smart decision. He's got that big household name because from the NFL and etc. But he's not UFC caliber. He's not a UFC fighter, and I think it's rightly deserved. Interest to see where he goes from here, but. Yeah, he's gonna have to work his way back if he wants to get inside the UFC, and I just don't see him having a future inside the UFC. Definitely not at the top.
Yeah, the guy appears to only want to strike and fight. So why don't you go to kickboxing? Why don't you go to boxing? I think those are better career moves than Greg Hardy because obviously he cannot cut it on the ground against monsters like Sergey Spivak. So now we'll just briefly talk about these prelims. Goodness gracious. Jalen Turner put out Champion Malarkey in epic fashion. What a great way to rise in the division. Putting away a tough guy like Malarkey. And then we had Marina Rodriguez versus Yan Xiaonan. This should have been on the main card because the winner of this would get a title shot in. It now appears that the winner of Rose Namajunas versus Carlos Barca can probably look forward to fighting Marina Rodriguez. But really good effort by Yan Xiaonan. Nikolai Negumereanu versus Kenny Zechru. Straight up robbery. Goodness gracious. Negumereanu was getting tagged every time he looked at the screen. And sure, he got a little bit of control time, but he really did nothing with it. The eye pokes were, of course, annoying and definitely take away a point in that third round. But that point being taken should not have changed the win of this fight. Kennedy did enough to win the fight. Did you agree?
Yeah, I've got to agree. And at worst, it should have been a draw. So
yeah, completely agree with that. Marina Rose putting on a show for the fans in Las Vegas and her fans back in Ukraine, dealing with unspeakable tragedy against her former teammate Maria Agapova. Wonderful moment, and she got herself a bonus. Lenny, what happened on the early prelims?
We have Umar Nurmagomedov putting on the best performance of his life against Brian Kelly, a grizzly veteran, but it's just the way he done it in spectacular fashion. I thought he might have struggled a little bit, but he just went out there and got the submission victory. It was impressive. And then Tim Elliott as well, putting on a phenomenal performance against Tagir Ulanbekov, who I thought Tagir was going to have his number, beat him, but Tim Elliott shows that he's a veteran. He's got them tricks and he got the job done. It was a fantastic performance. And then Ludovic Klein versus Devonta Smith. This was every time he initiated the clinch, it came in close. Every time, sorry, I'll rewind. Every time Smith came in close, Ludovic would always enter the clinch, and that's where he'd always win the fight. It wasn't very pretty, but he got the job done. It was a close one. It was, I expected Ludovic to kind of, win this one beforehand. He did it. It didn't really look pretty, but, he got the job done. And Dustin Kobe versus Michal Oleksiejczuk, that was a chess fight. It was a good one. What was your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, Jacoby finally got to prove that he's a top 15 light heavyweight in the world against Michal, who's been looking really good. The guy just knocked out a 15-0 Russian, and against Jacoby may have had some kind of leg injury. He could not kick, but he's still a decent boxer on his own end. And it was clear to me that Michal eventually tired, and he got clipped himself. It was a back and forth fight, but at the end of the day, Jacoby's just a much more skilled striker, and now he's finally in the top 15. The guy is on a huge win streak, and he deserves to be up there. So that about ends it for our discussion of UFC 272. We hope not to have to do a quick recap like this again. We hate missing episodes, but now we'll move on to UFC Vegas 50. Yes, the 50th one out of the Apex, and hopefully one of the last ones. But nonetheless, this was a really fun card. But I'll tell you what wasn't fun. That main event was not fun at all. Magomed Ankalaev puts on a lackluster performance against Thiago Santos. Magomed could have gotten himself a title shot had he really gone for it here. Maybe just straight up dominated. But this was very much a chess match. Thiago Santos said in the pre-fight pressers that this might be a chess match because Magomed Ankalaev is a big threat here, and this has kind of been how Thiago Santos has been fighting as of late. He goes out there and he just doesn't risk it. Against Johnny Walker, it looked like he fought scared of getting knocked out. That's what it looked like to me. Sure, he won the fight, but not impressively. And before that, against Rakic, that was just it was kind of more the same. He just didn't really want to go for those risks. I would say probably because of the Glover Teixeira fight, where goodness gracious, he took all the risks. He hurt Glover bad, but taking those risks resulted him in losing the fight here. But I'll talk about what Magomed Ankalaev didn't do. The guy had a clear wrestling advantage here. Clear wrestling advantage. And he only went for a takedown after the third round. He didn't have to get knocked down in that second round, getting clipped behind the ear. If he had just gone for more takedowns, maybe he was just scared of getting tired because it was his first 5-round fight. But I really think this could have been an easier fight for Magomed, and it could have made more of a statement. Instead, we saw both guys kind of just stare at each other, waiting on the other throw. Wasn't super exciting, but I'll say this: Magomed definitely looked more human than I expected him to. As I said, he got clipped. I think Magomed Ankalaev needs to work on that fight IQ or the game plan because his coaches were telling him to wrestle and he disobeyed them, and in the process, just didn't look super impressive to me.
Yeah, 100%. I've got to agree with you. But if we're talking about the other ends of the spectrum, we've got to talk about who looked impressive. I don't want to stay on that main event for too long because you mentioned there's not lots to talk about. It's lackluster, and it exactly right there. But someone who does deserve it, that's Song Yadong. Oh my! I saw it in your story. This guy is 24 years of age, and he's knocked out Marlon Moraes, who Marlon Moraes a few fights ago was fighting Henry Cejudo for the UFC Bantamweight Championship. Gave Henry Cejudo trouble in that fight. And then now we see him on a 4-fight losing streak, been knocked out in his last 3 out of 4 times. It's not looking good for him. But Song Yadong, his time has come, and he showed up impressively. This guy is the future, 100%.
Song Yadong is showing that he's made improvements. He used to be a guy that would get decisions win more often than not, but now he's fighting guys like Julio Arce, Marlon Moraes, and he's just putting it on them and putting them away in epic fashion here. The guy is a very powerful striker. I actually thought this first round would be Marlon Moraes' round because that's kind of been the story of Marlon Moraes' last few fights. He puts a beating on guys in that first round, but eventually he just tires out and the other guy takes over and finishes him. I thought this would be more of a performance on Moraes' end. It was a one-sided fight. Once Marlon got clipped, he toppled over, and the referee had mercy on him, and he stopped it. Song Yadong, he took advantage of the fact that Marlon has taken a ton of damage in the last couple of fights. I feel like that wasn't a narrative people were talking about enough. The fact that the guy took 130 unanswered strikes from Barab in his last fight. That's a beating that a lot of guys probably will never come back from. And I say Marlon is probably done in the UFC, not because the UFC will not keep him around. I think there's just a better spot for him out there on the Eagle FC roster. All the Dominance MMA guys managed by Ali Abdelaziz, a lot of them have found their way there, and Marlon is one of those guys. He will probably get paid more as well, and he could be champion there. So I say that's the move for Marlon. And for Song, I'm telling you that his next fight will be a big one. I say he probably fights the loser of that Cheeto Vera Rob Font fight coming up.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. That would be a good one. It would be good to see, the rematch between him and Vera. So
Yeah,
if that goes down, so that definitely makes sense. I like it. But as you mentioned, what went wrong for Marlon Moraes? After this fight, I text you. Just where did it all go wrong for Marlon Moraes? It seemed like it might have been lack of confidence after that Henry Cejudo fight.
man, even in the Jose Aldo fight, which he did win, he looked pretty good there. But I simply think one of the worst career decisions he made was fighting a month after he got knocked out by Cory Sandhagen. He got wheeled, kicked, knocked out by Cory Sandhagen A month later, he fought Rob Font and gets knocked out again. I think that's the kind of deal there where, yeah, probably lost a little bit of confidence and durability in the process. And your chin does not get better over time. So Marlon definitely needs to reconsider his next career move.
100%, I do agree. But Sonya Don looking good as ever. And someone else who looked good as ever as well. And it's showed by the scorecard. Sadiq Yusuf, are you impressed by his performance? That sounded like GSP.
I was fairly impressed by his performance. Sadiq, I thought he was going to get an early knockout here, but instead he shows that he's evolved as a fighter. Back then, he was kind of just a guy that would look for the quick knockout. This time around, he fights a little more, a little smarter, a little more technical, and he does it well. He fought Caceres, a guy who's always been long and lanky, and he attacked the legs, as you should. So it limited Caceres' mobility, and it took a little bit of sting off the punches. Not that Caceres has a ton of sting on him anyway, but Sadiq clearly had the power edge here, and he was not afraid to use that clinch. He went in the clinch, just straight up out-muscled Caceres there, and he won a definitive 30-27 in my book.
Yeah, I've got to agree. Alex Caceres, before heading into this fight, was in the best run of his, career since 2000 something. So it shows the momentum he was on. And Sadiq Yusuf, got the job done, took it off him. But it was a good win for Sadiq. I feel I was 30-27, as you mentioned. And it'll be interesting to see where they both go from here. But, Sadiq Yusuf, we knew he had that potential of when he burst on a scene against, I can't remember.
Was it Gabriel Benitez?
Yeah, when he yeah, I feel like was it when he knocked out Gabriel Benitez?
Yeah, that was on a big card.
Yeah. That when he burst the scene, so we know his potential. He's just got to show it, and I think a few more fights, I think we're going to realize where the ceiling is for him. But it was a fantastic fight. But something else that we would love to talk about as well: Khalil Roundtree versus Carl Robertson. A phenomenal fight. That ending sequence was just beautiful. The finish, everything was picture perfect, and then he gets on the mic. I feel like that was even better. The speech, what he's all about. You just can't hate this man.
Yeah, unless your name is Sean Strickland, but nonetheless, Khalil Roundtree using a move that's very underused, probably because it risks disqualification. He used a body soccer kick to a downed opponent, and goodness gracious, it was effective. He kind of bullied Carl Robertson out there, had Robertson walking backward a lot, and eventually just clipped him. And man, as soon as he landed that body kick, I knew it was over. That probably had Carl Robertson coughing up blood in the back. Absolutely brutal stuff. And Khalil Roundtree is now gotten back in the groove. Because there was a point where I thought the guy probably was about to retire. He was just not showing up in fights. And yeah, it feels like he's gotten back in the groove of the guy that was out there piecing up Eric Anders for 3 rounds with those leg kicks, knocking out Gogan Saki. I feel like he's back in that groove, and I love to see it because he's a dangerous guy.
100%. I do agree. And what he's all about as well, you just can't, as I mentioned, you just can't hate him. But that's 3 back-to-back losses for Carl Robertson now against Marvin Vettori, Brendan Allen, and against Khalil Roundtree. It's interesting to see where he goes from here. But you know what the UFC like nowadays? They're ruthless with their cuts. Who knows what could happen?
Yeah, Carl Robertson has fallen on hard times. He went from nearly putting away Glover Teixeira in the first round to now being on a serious skid here. But maybe they have sympathy on him because this was his first fight at light heavyweight in a while. But yeah, it's a tough spot for Robertson. Maybe, what would be a good fight? Maybe they do the Robertson Span rematch. You could do that, I guess, because Robertson straight up knocked him out on the contenders here. So I would love to see that one right back. But if you want to talk about more violence, Drew Dober versus Terrence McKinney. Maybe the best round we've seen this year. Drew Dober, I picked him in this fight. I picked him to win via second round KO. Terrence McKinney had a ton of hype on him. And he kept on saying he was going to be a top 10 fighter, but let's be honest, he doesn't have the style of a top 10 fighter because he doesn't respect his opponents. He doesn't plan on fighting 15 hard minutes like the best in the world do. This guy is a guy that will either take your head off or get his head taken off. That's what happened here. He had a huge speed advantage, huge reach advantage, and he overwhelmed Dober early. He just straight up knocked him down with a knee, landing vicious ground and pound. I thought Dober may have gotten put out there for a second, but here's why I picked Dober. Dober has maybe one of the most reliable chins in this entire division. Never been knocked out. Been in wars with heavy hitters, and the guy will not go away. So when he fought Terrence McKinney here, I knew he was going to be able to survive that early storm. And boy, did he ever. It looks similar to Terrence McKinney's fight with Sean Whitson, where he dominated Sean Whitson, but as soon as Whitson got back to his feet, Terrence was very tired, and he got clipped with a knee, the same knee that Dober clipped him with here and landed vicious ground pound. Terrence McKinney just, I don't think it's exactly a cardio issue. I just think it's a pacing issue. The guy does not pace himself. And I thought he had already learned this lesson on the Contender Series, but it appears he needed to learn it again here. So I feel like Terrence McKinney needs to improve here. And Drew Dober, on the other hand, I think he's in the spot in his career where he accepts he's not going to be champion, but he can definitely put on a show for the fans. And the knockout, the call out of Bobby Green was excellent.
Yeah, I'll talk about McKenna as well. I think it's a bit of an IQ as well. Just not being smart. And I feel like this is going to be, we talked about it on the Contender Series where he didn't learn his lesson, but I feel like this will be the fight where McKenna would definitely learn his lesson. He's got to be more patient with his strikes. If he was patient in this fight and fought with a bit of IQ, I think he could have won the fight. If you look early on, he knocked him down, had him in bad trouble. But if he took his time and tried and didn't rush it, I think he could have potentially got the finish. But he talked about Dober being grizzled. He hasn't got knocked out. He's been in these sort of fights before. And just McKenna just needs to be patient and maybe accepted that he wasn't going to finish Dober and stand back up and just be patient. As talked about, pick his shots. But that's not going to happen with McKenna, is it? That's like, no, the odds on that would be crazy. But McKenna, he's exciting. Dober is exciting. And it was a fantastic fight on the main card.
Yeah. There's nothing but upside in future Drew Dober fights. The guy always puts on a show. And Alex Bejeda put on a show against Bruno Silva. Alex Bejeda was a slight favorite in this spot, and I actually thought he deserved to be a bit of a bigger favorite. Bruno Silva is a black belt, but the guy does not go for takedowns at all. He actually said he wouldn't wrestle, but as soon as he started feeling that Bejeda power, he turned into a wrestler, went for those takedowns. And ultimately, that's what tired out Bejeda. Bejeda, I expected him to look a little more impressive, quite honestly, but Bruno Silva was just so tough and obviously a more experienced MMA fighter. So it was actually a very close fight standing. So that was very surprising to me, honestly. But Bruno Silva is a tough guy. And one thing that you can always appreciate about Bejeda, he attacks all three levels, the head, body, and legs, racks up a lot of volume. And he's got a solid chin himself here. So he was able to take Bruno Silva's best shots and fire right back. Nearly put away Bruno Silva, but he was a bit too tired to put him away here. So this is something I needed to see from Bejeda. Fight a long fight against an experienced MMA fighter, a guy with over 25 fights, and he looked good out there.
Yeah, and then straight after, he called out Jared Cannonier, which was a big call out for someone who's only 5-1 in the MMA career.
That's it. Honestly, Bejeda wasted his call out there. Bejeda called out a guy who's all but signed the contract to fight the champion next. So I don't understand the call out. I think if the UFC wants to do a sink or swim spot, it's Derek Brunson. Derek Brunson has one fight left on his card. Derek Brunson probably destroys him, but he's not the most durable guy. Bejeda could land something crazy. You never know. So they could do that fight, but quite honestly, I don't have a huge appetite for that fight. I say he fights the loser of Gastelum Imavov. And now let's talk about these prelims, man. Wow. These prelims were fantastic. 5 finishes, bunch of comebacks. There's a lot to love on the prelim portion of UFC Vegas 50. Let's start with Semelsberger's win over AJ Fletcher. Semmelsberger was the big favorite here, and I agreed with it. Fletcher had really not fought high-level competition before the Contender Series. He had an amazing flying knee there, but he's not going to run over Semi the Jedi. Semi the Jedi, he got taken down in that first round, and I was thinking it was going to be a rough night for him. But in that second round, he gets taken down again, but he reverses position, gets to take down himself, and he realizes he can be the better grappler if he's actually on top. And that's what happened in the third round. Fletcher was in a spot he had never really been in, a tough competitive fight, and he gets taken down and can't get up. So it was a good performance for Semmelsberger. He went through some adversity. This is going to be a learning experience for AJ Fletcher.
Yeah, I understand. I remember before the show, you were very high on AJ Tracy. I was about to call him AJ Tracy. He's a music artist in the UK. AJ Fletcher. But yeah, and Semmelsberger. There was one thing that in this fight that was get on my nerves a little bit. And that was the hair of Semmelsberger. Yeah. It seemed like it got in the way of him a little bit.
Like what? You're a high level fighter. Don't you want to see all the punches heading your way?
Yeah, but yeah, we talked about performance. It was a good performance against a tough prospect, but maybe trim that hair a little bit because it was getting in his way quite a lot.
Maybe bring the mullet back. That's definitely much tidier for fighting. But nonetheless, Semmelsberger, he hits like a truck, but he didn't have to use that power because Fletcher forced the wrestling in that fight. Now let's talk about Aldrich's win over Robertson. Goodness gracious. Aldrich was the underdog in this fight. I have no idea who was making those lines because Aldrich is a better wrestler. She's a better striker, and she does well for herself defensively on the ground. So for her to be an underdog in the fight was hilarious. And I bet it hard, and I made my money on Aldrich by decision. She's not going to finish really anybody. And Robertson just did not have the wrestling to get there. So what we saw was mainly a striking match, and Aldrich was obviously better. So she won a decisive 30-27. That was basically the story of the fight. Robertson shines on the ground, but when it's not on the ground, doesn't look really great.
That's it. When she comes up against a grappler that can hold herself, as you're talking about, or maybe even better, she seemed loss of what to do because, as you talked about, she's not very good on the feet, and JJ Aldridge was better on the feet, better on the grappling. So it looked like she was lost in there, and it showed. Aldridge got the job done 30-27. Impressive. But if you want to talk about impressive, I thought Javid Basharat was phenomenal.
Yeah, Javid Basharat is 12-0 and had all finishes before this. And not only can he get it done on the ground with vicious ground and pounder submissions, on the feet, he's a fantastic striker too. He's very patient, likes to use his range, likes to use a variety of kicks, mixes in knees. Just there's a lot to love on the Basharat side. He's a very well-rounded fighter, and I really liked his output, and his output won him this fight. Trevin Jones, he's kind of fallen in love with his hands. Originally, he was a takedown artist, would go for submissions, but after getting a couple big knockouts against super high-level guys like Batista and Valiev, now he's kind of fallen in love with the knockout. But the problem was that Javid has a tremendous chin on him. Javid did get clipped, but he stuck through it, and he decisively won those rounds. It was a close fight, back and forth fight. You could have been this fight of the night besides the Dober McKinney fight. But in the end, Basharat won the fight. And, man, I think the ceiling on him is very high. He's still young, still can improve, still undefeated. I think we could see him in the top 15 one day.
Every single fight on this card could have got a bonus. It was incredible. It was such a fantastic card. And Basharat, his brother fought on the exact same day as he did, and they both got a win. So maybe we want to see another pair of brothers inside the UFC.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Just like the Kosi brothers, the Diaz brothers, we got the Basharat brothers. I would love to see it. Maybe Basharat gets his brother gets a spot on the Contender Series later this year. Now we'll talk about Damon Jackson's featherweight win over Camuela Kirk. Camuela is a stud, man. He beat Billy Quarantillo in the first round of their Contender Series fight, and he beat Makwan Americani, nearly submitted him. So that's all you need to know. And he was fighting Damon Jackson, who's a stud himself. He's only lost to Ilya Toporia in this second run he's had in the UFC. And besides that, he's just been mauling guys with his grappling. But the difference maker here was actually his striking. Their grappling canceled each other out early in the fight. They struck, and Damon Jackson hurt Camuela Kirk bad and took it to the ground and just dominated. Kirk could not get up. And in that second round, he got another takedown, went for the arm triangle in the mount, could not get it. He adjusted the position, got into half guard, and then went for it again, and Kirk tapped immediately. Damon Jackson has a really vicious grip, and he just submitted a fellow black belt in BJJ. So that's so impressive for Damon Jackson. Now guy has a 20-4 record, so Jackson is definitely earned himself a big fight next.
Yeah, and he's very underrated, as you were talking about. He's very underrated. I feel like it wasn't talked about enough heading into this fight card, but, you know, I think we're talking about him now. So, well, we are talking about him now, so definitely needs to be highlighted more in the future. And as you talked about, a bigger matchup for him next is definitely the move forward for the UFC.
Sure. And we'll move on to Sabina Mazo's loss to Miranda Maverick via submission in the second round. I was super confident in Miranda Maverick in this fight. Sabina Mazo is not good at all off of her back, let's be honest. That's kind of been her problem in a UFC fight. She does well for herself on the feet here. In fact, she was able to bust open Maverick, but it didn't matter at the end. Maverick's just much physically stronger than here. She took it to the ground, and she eventually got the submission on Mazo. As Mazo was trying to get up, she gave up her back, and Maverick has a very strong grip. She put her away in that second round, and Mazo was able to survive on the ground with another black belt in Alexis Davis. So for Maverick to get the submission was very impressive. And somehow she was actually on a 2-fight skid before this, so this is a big win for Sabina Mazo. On the other hand, might be cut after this.
Yeah, when she fought Macy Barber. Yeah, there you go. Well, she should have got the win that night. Then she fought Erin Blanchfield in a good fight. But yeah, Miranda Maverick getting back into the win column, and it was fantastic. She took this one on short notice, and I thought it was a wise decision as well, a smart decision for her. And it was and now she moves back into the win column, and she could, you know, propel her career forward again. But as you talked about, Sabina Mazo not looking good. Three of her last 4 she's lost, and 2 submission losses as well. So something that she needs to work on. But it gives her a good idea to go what to work on. But something else as well we want to talk about was this. This was the start of the night, and this sets the tempo of what's going to happen. It was crazy.
Yeah, Dalcha Lungiambula was having one of his best UFC performances ever. The guy had Cody Brundage on the run, had him terrified. He was absolutely getting destroyed out there, getting hit with Dolce's best punches. He was curling up, and I thought Dolce was about to knock him out, but the thing that's reliable with Dolce, the guy will eventually tire out. And if you listen to any Cody Brundage interview before this, that's what he was banking on. Dolce got tired of hitting Cody, so he went for a takedown, and he went for a lazy takedown, created an opening for Brundage's guillotine. And I think the fact that he was already very tired contributed to the fact that he tapped there, because that guillotine did not let Dolce breathe, and he had to tap. Very tough fight if you're a big Dolce fan, because the guy was about to get the finish. But yeah, made it one mistake, and Cody capitalized. This was not a good performance by any means by Cody Brundage, but the guy definitely displayed his heart here and his submission prowess. Cody Brundage definitely needs to go back to the drawing board in terms of defense, but nonetheless, you got to give a guy a pat on the back for surviving the storm.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. Before this fight, I thought Dolce was going to win, and it was heading that way until Cody sunk in that guillotine. It was a fantastic fight, and as I talked about, it proper set up the end of the. It proper set up the event because it gave off good vibes. It was everyone went mental in the crowd, but it was phenomenal. It was a great way to start the card. But if you look at the other two fights that we have below us, that they were a fantastic way to start the card. And one thing that I didn't see happening was possibly Guido Canetti winning, and the way Guido Canetti done it was even more astonishing. I didn't think he would finish Chris Mutino like that.
This was another spot on the card where I was scratching my head with the odds. Chris Mutino had absolutely no right to be a favorite after his Sugar Sean O'Malley fight. Not just that, he only got the Sugar Sean O'Malley fight because he was a guy that was available. That was basically
Vegas,
it. The guy did not have a really good record. He had not fought really. Actually, the guys that he did fight on the regional circuit that were good knocked him out. So Moutinho, even though he looked very durable in the O'Malley fight, in reality, he's actually not the most durable guy. He did get knocked down in the first round of the O'Malley fight, but O'Malley was being a counter striker. He was not sitting down on those punches. He did not generate the power that he would had he been walking forward, sitting down on those punches, trying to get knockouts. O'Malley was just pitter-pattering him for a portion of that fight. The difference between O'Malley and Canetti does not have a good gas tank, so he has to go super hard and walk forward and just throw wild hooks, unlike O'Malley. So Canetti just absolutely put hands on Moutinho. And Moutinho, even if he did have a good chin before the O'Malley fight, that may be gone now because he took the beating of a lifetime against O'Malley. It's another situation like Murad versus Bryce and Ferguson versus Gaethje. Those are beating some guys just don't come back from. That might be the case for Moutinho because he was fighting a 43-year-old bantamweight, man. Canetti probably shouldn't be on the roster either because let's be honest, this guy's a bottom of the food chain type guy. So if you can't beat him, you probably shouldn't be in the UFC. And Canetti absolutely stunned Moutinho as a standing TKO. I bet my money on Canetti here. I didn't think he was going to get the knockout, but to think Moutinho should be a favorite against anybody on the roster was wild because he's super hittable.
Yeah, I've got to agree. It was a bit. I was quite astonished the way he done it, but Guido Canetti looked in phenomenal shape. At 42 years of age, he looks in prime position, in prime. So it was good to see him get the win. It was a phenomenal way to, as I was talking about, phenomenal way to start the card. But the way it set it off with, I go ahead, Oscar, pronounce his name.
Azamat Mirzakhanov versus Takar
Mirzakhanov.
Nchukwi.
Yeah.
Goodness
I know that one.
Gracious. This is
a fantastic fight. And the way he done it, it was 1-1. And then the third round, whoever won that one would have took the scorecard. But I thought Tafa Nchukwi was looking good. He was looking really, really good in them first two rounds. And then just out of nowhere, boom, flying knee, it's over. Wow.
Yeah, that first round was close. I actually did score it for Tafan. The second round was very easy to score. I don't even believe Azamat, if I'm not mistaken, Azamat didn't even land 10 strikes in the second round. The guy was obviously gassed. He just didn't want to throw, and he let Tafan dictate the pace of the second round. Tafan landed big head kicks, was stunning Azamat. And I actually had money bet on Azamat to win the fight before the fight. And I got scared. I pulled all my money out. I said, no, this is not going to be Azamat's night. The guy is very tired. And I thought he would have a striking advantage in this fight. He did not have it. And come that third round, Tafan gets told by his corner, why go to the decision? You can just knock him out right here. And that mistake by his coaches led to his downfall. He went forward trying to get that finish. And Azamat threw up a flying knee from out of nowhere, man. From out of nowhere. And he put Tafan completely out we've never seen this happen in top five. So it was so impressive for Aspinall to win this. He's now 11-0, and he saved his perfect record in that third round because he was about to be 10-1.
Yeah, 11-0 and 9 finishes. This guy is a finisher, and we seen it in the third round. He was tied. Taffin was wearing him out, and then just boom, straight down the middle with that flying knee. It was it shows that he carries the power since for the late rounds. But it was a fantastic way to start the card, and this card overall was just immense. It was incredible. You could have gave a bonus to probably every single fight on this card.
Yeah, this is a fight night where I believe the UFC should start implementing finish bonuses because the UFC is in such a tough position. We have to choose the performance bonuses because a lot of people, I would say everybody that got a finish deserved a performance bonus. In this case, MMAUnhinged certainly didn't, but nonetheless, really good card despite the main event. And one thing I did forget to mention, Osman actually owns a KO win over Andre Muniz, a ranked guy at middleweight. So that's definitely something that we could see ran back at some point. So just a little tidbit there. But that wasn't the only organization that put on fights that weekend. Borix versus Burnell was the main event of Bellator 276. And this was maybe the best fight of the weekend. This was a banger, man. The real hardcore fans knew that these two guys would bring in. I actually picked Matt Burnell to win the fight. I actually did pick him to win. But Borix just looked better than ever. He climbs to 18-1, and now he's in a position where he can get himself the winner of that title rematch between McKee and Pitbull. I cannot wait to see this guy get his title shot because he's earned it, man. His striking looked fantastic out there. He had the high output, and that's definitely what won him the fight here against Burnell. But Burnell, there's nothing to be ashamed of here. He definitely fought his heart out in this fight.
Yeah, Aspinall, they were talking to each other during the fight. It was it was good to see this fight. And as you talked about, definitely one of the best fights of this weekend. It was phenomenal. It was a great main event. Maybe it went under the radar a little bit, but it was a fantastic fight night. I enjoyed it. There's a few.
Did you pick on the stats?
No, unfortunately not. Yeah, unfortunately not. I cannot. So we can't look at what the stats or what happened. But yeah, I feel like Adam Bryce looked good. Well, he did look good. A fantastic performance, and as you talked about, definitely set himself up to call out or maybe potentially fight for the belt. So at featherweight, I feel like Bellator have got a fantastic division, and they've just got to really utilize it.
100%. The lower weight classes for Bellator are, I would definitely say, their most exciting weight classes. Their bantamweight division is on fire. The featherweight division is so much fun right now, especially with the young blood coming in. Borix is the perfect example of that. In the co-main event, we had Phil Davis coming off of a win over Yoel Romero, and he was fighting Julius Anglickas, who had just fought for the belt. And I had no doubts here Phil Davis was going to win this fight, and he did here. Simply just better everywhere, and he proved it out there in this fight. He had much more high-level experience, and Julius, he's shown good moments in these last couple fights, but I don't think he's like an elite guy. Yeah,
I've got to agree. Anglickas is only in a position that he is because Anthony Rumble Johnson fell out of that, the Grand Prix, and he stepped in, and he done it. He made a wise decision to step in, but when he fights against these top guys, Phil Davis, Vadim Nemkov, he's ultimately going to fall short. So unfortunately, it didn't go his way this night, and it was Phil Davis looked good, and I feel like he's setting himself up to maybe get another title shot at 205 pounds. I can't think of too many other guys. You got Cory Anderson versus Vadim Nemkov. Maybe the winner takes on Phil Davis. I think that definitely makes sense.
You could do it, but it would be a trilogy with Nemkov most likely.
Yeah, and he's got 2 on him.
Yeah, so
yeah,
I don't know for Phil Davis. But the guy's he's a consistent fighter. That's what I'll say. He's a consistent fighter. You know what to expect out of him. He's not going to be the most exciting guy, but goodness gracious, he's very effective against the best in the world, and he showed it out there once again. We had Johnny Eblin, the big prospect, 11-0. versus John Salter. He was a big favorite, and he proved it here. Salter has a fantastic arsenal of submissions here. It just didn't matter. Eblen's a better wrestler. Striking was definitely on the Eblen side here in this fight, but yeah, I think he's got a really good style to where he probably gets himself a competitive fight with the champion Gegard Mousasi at some point. I don't know if Gegard would destroy him like he did Austin Redford.
Yeah, that's it. I think Mousasi's got another prospect coming his way. Another 11-0 prospect. I feel Mousasi is thriving under these sort of matchups. I think he likes it. He likes being the one that has to defeat them, and I think he's got a better version of Oscar Manafort, if I'm honest.
I would have to agree with you. Eblen is a problem, man. That wrestling, as I said, definitely higher level than Vanderford. Probably the toughest wrestler Mousasi's fought in a while. Yeah,
100%. I got to agree. And JJ Wilson, unfortunately, falls from the ranks of unbeaten. One that quite surprised me. I thought he was going to get a job done, but Rab Badnov got it done. Alex Polizzi as well. He got the job done against Jose Augusto, who lost to Anthony Rumble Johnson. And he was eyeing up a rematch with Rumble. I feel like that one has now probably fell short a little bit. But yeah, Cody Law as well. If you watch Cody Law, have you seen him in the past? This guy's a killer. He's a huge prospect. I'm liking to see where he goes in the future.
Yeah, the guy wrote down that he was going to knock out his opponent at a minute 17 of the first round, and he went out there and did it. Even if his opponent was in on it, I don't even think you can make a prediction that accurate. And he went out there and did it. Cody Law could not look better. The guy has all the ceiling in the world. We could be looking at a future Bellator champion. Wonderful wrestling experience and background, and he's got huge power in his hands. Reminds me a little bit of Johnny Hendricks in terms of the guy's fantastic wrestler, and he's fallen in love with his hands a little bit. And man, he's going to be a problem in the future.
You were talking about wrestling. Let's talk about a wrestler's promotion. Iglassi Habib put on a show as well this weekend. It was a fantastic event, a fantastic weekend of MMA. But Kevin Lee versus Diego Sanchez. That first round, it seemed like Kevin Lee torn his ATL, and that kind of hindered his performance a little bit. Not impressive, but I do believe the ACL did affect his performance.
100%. Diego Sanchez. Even though he was fighting a guy with a torn ACL, he fought pretty well out there. It's the best he's looked in a while. I thought this was going to be a mauling of Diego Sanchez, but Kevin Lee, as I said, injured himself early, and I feel like it may have stopped that Diego Sanchez from being finished in the spot. If we had a fully healthy Kevin Lee, I think he gets a finish in this fight, but that wasn't the case, and Diego had his moments just by being knocked down in the fight. Kevin Lee will be the champion of this weight class, the super lightweight weight class. I think he'll be the champion of this division. I think they don't have a better 165-pounder on their roster, but there's a real possibility they start adding bigger and bigger names because it appears that these Eagle FC investors have a lot of money.
Yeah, and in the co-main event as well, Rizvan Kunayev versus Anthony Hammond. That was a complete mismatch. It was clear that Rizvan was levels above Anthony Hammond, who was used to be in the UFC, but he's on the ending of his career, and it was, as I mentioned, complete mismatch.
Yeah, I didn't get this at all. They also probably should show more respect to their heavyweight title. Having their heavyweight titles come in, man, not a good look. It doesn't bring a ton of importance to the belt. Kunayev, if you remember, he was actually on the Contender Series last year, and he got himself a third-round finish. He was actually hospitalized after the match, and he was probably watching on his phone Dana White turning him down to say that he wasn't impressive. So that would have to be a tough situation for Rizvan. I feel like Rizvan would do pretty well in the UFC's heavyweight division. Maybe he can find himself getting signed at some point, but nonetheless, he got a super easy matchup. Let's be real here. Anthony Hamilton is one of those guys from the old era heavyweight division where you didn't have to be as well-rounded. they didn't have as many guys with Guniev's style, so Hamilton never had good submission defense. He got Kimura by Francis Ngannou, for goodness sake. So that was my pick for the fight, Cunha by submission. He went out there and did it. And another pick of mine that was correct, Ray Borg beat Ricky Bandejas. Bandejas coming from Bellator. He had a couple of tough losses. One of them was to the current champ, Pettis. So no shame there. But yeah, he definitely put a beating on Ray Borg here. It was a split decision for a reason. It could have gone either way, in my opinion. Ray Borg had more control time, but he took a beating on the feet.
Yeah, if you look at the face of Ray Borg after, it didn't look pretty. I think Ricky Banderas, I don't know. I feel like he got the job done. It was I'm a damage over position sort of guy thing, and I feel like he caused more damage than Ray Borg did with his wrestling. But it was a tricky fight for both. But it's good to see these UFC caliber guys fighting outside the UFC. I feel like both of these could compete in the UFC. Maybe not be top 15, top 10, but I feel like they could, have a run inside the UFC. Definitely Ray Borg. I feel like he could do well in the flyweight division, but he doesn't like the cut. You probably wouldn't trust him getting down to flyweight, but he likes to stay at bantamweight. And Ricky Banderas, I always thought he had a good arsenal, a good all-round game, and he's got them submissions, but he seems to get submitted a little bit too regularly. But he's fought a killer's row over in Bellator, so he didn't get really handed with matchups.
A matchup that just came to mind, that would be pretty cool. Bandejas versus Moraes. Moraes' Eagle FC debut. I would love to see that. I would love to see it, honestly. I think that's a winnable fight for Marlon Moraes. We also had Henderson Fajeda win over Jack Julosa. And also Impa Kasanganay, the UFC veteran. He got cut after a couple of tough losses, and he performed well against Raymond Magomedov in that fight. He fought better than I thought he would. I actually thought he was going to get knocked out, but he fought to a close split decision.
Man, it's crazy. In his Eagle FC debut, they give him a Russian monster. It was as you talked about. He fought better than I expected. It was crazy. But yeah, Impa Kasanganay didn't get the best of luck of on his debut, but it was a fantastic performance. A lot of people said that he could have got the win, so he has that in his locker. So it was a good event all around. At the start of the event, we had Ryder Newman. You might know his name. He was tough. So he's outside the UFC getting the job done.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. I honestly wish the UFC would have signed a couple more guys off of that season of The Ultimate Fighter. Felt like they left a lot of good talent off the table. Guys like Danny Argueta, who else? Ryder Newman, as we just said. I felt like they let some good guys go from that season. We also had Erwin Rivera on the card. I wouldn't even go to his situation, but the guy is literally insane.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to put it. But yeah, this guy's literally insane. Yeah, we don't want to talk about what happened over there. But yeah, Eagle FC, it was a fantastic event. Kevin Levis, Diego Sanchez. I probably expected Lee to look a little bit better, but the ACL, it's on, which is not good, by the way, because he's had both of them reconstructed, surgery on. So it's interesting to see, how he comes back from this. So, but and who he comes back against. I feel like he's going to win a big fight, and who do you put him up against? It'll be interesting. But yeah, we had a fantastic event, that one, and we've got a fantastic event this weekend, UFC London. Let's go.
Boy, oh boy. Emanating from the O2 Arena for the first time since 2019. Last time we had an event in the O2 Arena, it was Jorge Masvidal versus Darren Till, and what an event that was. And unfortunately, the pandemic has stopped the UFC from returning there. They were set to return there in March of 2020, 2 years ago, for Tyron Woodley versus Leon Edwards. That event never happened, and we're finally getting the UFC back. And the main event is Alexander Volkov versus England's own Tom Aspinall. I'm very much looking forward to this one because this is a sink or swim spot for Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall has been steamrolling the competition in the UFC. He started with Jake Collier and worked his way to Sergey Spivak. And we just saw how good Spivak looked out there against Greg Hardy. steamrolls him with clinch strikes, puts him down with an elbow and finishes him. Tom Aspinall is the real deal. We could be looking at a future champion here. He's fighting Guy Volkov with over 40 professional fights. He's been around the block. He's had a really long streak in the UFC in the past. He was looking really good in that Derek Lewis fight before he got knocked out. He knocked out Fabricio Verdum in the O2. And in his last fight, he beat Marcin Tybura, stuffed the majority of the takedowns, and output him on the feet. He's very much a proven commodity in this division. And not to mention, he took 2 rounds off of Cyril Gane. Outstruck Cyril Gane in the first 2 rounds of their fight. And I think if he can do it to Cyril Gane, he can certainly do it to Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall is a heavy hitter. He's never fought a guy as durable, as tall, as rangy, as experienced as Volkov. Aspinall has always said he wants to take it slow. In fact, after his last fight, he called out Blago Ivanov, who was number 11. And now he finds himself fighting, if I'm not mistaken, the number 6 contender. So, honestly, I think this might be a little too soon for Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall is now fighting for the first time in a huge crowd. That could either be a good thing or a bad thing. But I don't think that'll matter at the end of the day because I believe Volkov's the more skilled guy. I truly believe it. And he has the advantage of fighting 5 rounds before. Tom Aspinall, a lot of people don't know this, but he's had kind of a gas tank issue before the UFC, and he's gotten finished himself. And I believe that will happen here against Volkov. I think he might tag Volkov early, but Volkov is just a grizzly vet, man. He's not going to leave himself to be open to be hit that many times. I think eventually he finishes Tom Aspinall via 4th round TKO here. I think this is going to be a spot where Aspinall gets humbled a bit.
I mean, I've got to agree with you on some of the parts. I feel like you're making some valid points. It's a great fight. It's a tough matchup for Tom Aspinall. As you talk about Alexander Volkov, former champion of Bellator, has been around the block in the UFC, fought the best of the best. It's not an easy matchup or walk in the park for either man. But if I'm giving the edge, it's hard for me to say this, but I've got to give it to Alexander Volkov. It's the experience. As you talked about, he took 2 rounds of Cyril Gane, and that's phenomenal. Striking as well, striking with Cyril Gane. So this guy's a killer on the feet. They're very patient. Both of them are very patient on the feet, but the power edge I'm going to give to Tom Aspinall. Obviously, we've seen him. He's a finisher. But do I see Tom Aspinall finishing Volkov? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't. If you're finishing Volkov, you got to have power like Derek Lewis, putting him out instantly, and he's not getting back up. And I don't see Tom Aspinall having that sort of power to be able to put out Volkov. But the combination of punches, he likes to mix up his wrestling. I think that'll be he will utilize this in his fight as well. He's very well rounded. I see Tom Aspinall using that wrestling, but I still seeing it just not being enough. Are you talking about maybe too much of a jump at once? I feel like they should have brought him up slowly, and they rushed him in to the 5-round fight main event at UFC London. That's huge. That's a lot of pressure. You're in your home country. You're fighting a fantastic fighter. Your first ever main event. Unreal pressure.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there. One thing to note here, too, is that Tom Aspinall is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The guy definitely can give challenges to, shout out to White Belt MMA giving us a shout out. And Tom Aspinall definitely can give problems to Volkov on the ground if it gets there. But here's the thing. Tom Aspinall is not a good wrestler as Marcin Tybura. That's what Volkov found in his last fight. He stuffed those takedowns, and he tired him out. I think he can do that to Tom Aspinall here. And I think he'll definitely be looking to use those teep kicks, the same kicks he used against Walt Harris, to definitely attack the body and slow down his opponent here. I see Volkov getting a similar TKO win that he did against Fabricio Verdum in the O2. So, yeah, it's going to be a rough night for the people of London when they see their guy go down. But I think they're going to have plenty of moments to cheer throughout the event. And we'll move on to the co-main event. Arnold Allen fights Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker is coming back down to featherweight. And I don't know if it's a good move because at lightweight, he's looked fantastic. The guy went on a one hell of a run. He absolutely dominated Ally Quina. He then beat Paul Felder in a 5-round main event. And then he fights Dustin Poirier. And on that night, I thought he beat Dustin Poirier. And that was Dustin Poirier's last fight before he went out and knocked out Conor McGregor. So I still think Dan Hooker's a world-class lightweight. I don't agree with this move down. He's made the statement in the past that he fights better drunk than at featherweight. So him going back down to featherweight, I don't know about it. Sure, he's got his nutrition in check, but we might be seeing Dan Hooker, an inferior version of Dan Hooker here. I feel like he probably hits harder at lightweight, and I don't know. Maybe he's got more strength at lightweight. So it's a tough decision here for the pick because Arnold Allen, on the other hand, he's got a big win streak. I believe it's an 8-fight win streak. He's got quality names on there: Makwan Arikani, Gilbert Melendez, Sodiq Yusuff, and he hurt Sodiq bad in that fight. He's such a well-rounded guy, and so is Dan Hooker. This is a fight that's going to come down to a split decision. I think it's probably going to come down to the output. I don't see a ton of grappling here. I think we'll see a kickboxing match, and it's very hard to pick this fight. But at the end of the day, Dan Hooker is much more proven against high-level competition. As I said, might have beaten Dustin Poirier in their fight, beat Ally Quinn. And at featherweight, he had a competitive fight with Yair Rodriguez. So I will slightly lean Dan Hooker here, but not with any confidence.
Yeah, this is a tough matchup, as you're talking about. Dan Hooker going down to 145 pounds. When he stepped on the scale 155 pounds, I thought he looks rough. And him going down to 145 pounds, it's not going to look good on the scale for him, is it? So I'm keeping that away from my pick. I'm not looking at that as it can affect it. I'm looking at this as a fighter aspect. So who's the better fighter and who's fought the better competition? I'm leaning towards Dan Hooker. He's fought the better competition, but I don't know what it is. It's something special about Arnold Allen. There's something that he can do that that to Dan Hooker that we've probably never seen. But I don't see him finishing Dan Hooker. Arnold Allen's not a heavy puncher. I can't remember the last time he got a knockout on the feet. As you talked about, he hurt Sodiq Yusuff in his last fight. But when was the last time we've seen Arnold Allen start someone or knock someone down badly? He's not that type of guy. He's patient. He hits the target. He sticks and moves. He's calculated. That's what he is. He's calculated on the feet. And I feel like he's just going to be just too swift for Dan Hooker in this one. I see him being too quick, maybe. I know Dan Hooker's moved down to 145 pounds, but the little frame of Arnold Allen, I feel it's gonna be a little bit of a shock to Dan Hooker. And maybe as we talked about with Kevin Holland when he took a little round off to get used to it, get adjusted. But I feel like Dan Hooker's gonna maybe take a little bit too long to get adjusted. Maybe the third round he comes on strong, but I think it'll be a little bit too late.
All right. I sense the told you so fight of the week. That's going to be a good one right there. And we'll move on to the return of Paddy, the Batty.
The return,
this guy set the world on fire. When he made his UFC debut, you interviewed him before that debut. The guy was fired up. He was going for a first-round finish against Luigi Benjamini, who was historically very tough. And he goes out there. We will not be in attendance for the UFC event. Those tickets, they went fast. So either got them or you did. We did not. Petty.
They were extortionate, man.
As I said, first round KO over Luigi. And historically for Paddy Pimblett, he's more of a grappler. He's got good wrestling and he's got fantastic BJJ. And he didn't show it in his debut. I think he'll show it in this fight because he's fighting Kazula Vargas, who I believe is a more durable guy than Luigi Venturini, but he's not as good a striker as Venturini, and in terms of grappling, he's nowhere near Luigi. So this is a nightmare matchup for Vargas. Paddy Pimblett has all the skills to put a pace on Vargas and eventually choke him out. I see a second round rear naked choke for Patty. I think Patty probably messes around with Vargas on the feet. In terms of striking, it's kind of even, probably slightly into Vargas because Pimlet did not show great striking defense his last couple fights. So maybe Vargas can win this in a kickboxing match, but Patty's too good of a grappler not to just go for those takedowns and get a submission. I think Vargas finds himself in a similar match as the Alex De Silva fight. Remember that fight? De Silva took him down many times, held him down. Patty can do the same, but he's more of an offensive grappler. He'll go for those submissions, and I think he'll get it. Any submission he wants, quite honestly.
Yeah, I've got to agree. I think this is a good matchup for Paddy Pimblett and a smart move from the UFC. It seems like they're trying to build him up, and I don't blame him. That he's probably the next cash cow outside of England, or what inside of England. I mean, he gained monumental numbers after his debut. It was a fantastic debut for him, and he got on the mic. This guy has got it all. He can speak like an elite, superstar, and he's going to prove it once again. He's going to get a submission win, and he's going to want to prove something because on his debut, it wasn't, as you talked about, it wasn't smooth. It wasn't the prettiest of debuts, but he got the job done. It showed what he's about. But I feel like in this one, he's going to really want to prove to the fans, to the world, that he is an elite fighter, and I feel like he's going to get it done. I'm going to go for a round one submission. I think he's going to get it.
Yeah, I sense Paddy Pimblett will blow the roof off of the O2 with that finish and get himself a performance of the night.
When his music hits and he walks out, the roof is going to blow. It's going to be a phenomenal.
Yeah, 100%. We got to see that walkout in the UFC Apex, and it's going to be nowhere near as fun as it was when we see it in front of a London crowd. And we talked about the return of Paddy the Baddy. How about the return of Gunnar Nelson? Gunnar Nelson has not fought for several years. His last fight was against Gilbert Burns, and it was a very close fight. That loss has aged very well. Gunnar Nelson, I believe the only reason he's not ranked is because of inactivity. The guy has a fantastic skill set. He's a really good karate striker, and his BJJ is, I would say, top 10 in the UFC. There's very few guys that can beat this guy in the grappling realm. Gilbert Burns was one of those guys, and Gilbert Burns was also a better striker that night. Before that, he fights Leon Edwards in the O2. Last time they were in the O2, he loses a split decision to Leon Edwards, the guy that's fighting for the belt next. That guy, yeah. But I feel like the big thing that swayed the fight was Leon getting the third round knockdown. Gunnar Nelson is not super durable. Shortly before the Leon fight, he actually fought in the main event against Santiago Ponzinibbio. He got starched in that fight in the first round.
That was in Scotland as well. I was actually at that event.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Takashi Sato, he could have a similar performance that Ponzinibbio did if the layoff for Gunnar Nelson is too much, because Gunnar is coming off a lot of injuries, a long layoff, and that can definitely play a role here. But I really think that low of Sato's ground game, his ground game is just really not good. I think Gunnar Nelson get takedowns here and get a first round submission. Sato was submitted by Bilal Muhammad. I like Bilal Muhammad. He's a good boxer. He's a good wrestler. I wouldn't say his BJJ is like really up there. Gunnar Nelson's BJJ is definitely up there in the wide scheme of things. Gunnar Nelson will get this rear naked choke in the first round.
Yeah, I've got to agree. I think Nelson is just different animal, different levels on the ground. If you look at Sato as well, his record has been submitted 3 of his 4 losses.
Yeah,
that's not looking against, as you talked about, a submission threat as good as Gunnar Nelson. It's not looking good. So yeah. I'm going to go with Gunnar Nelson. I think he's going to submit, and I wouldn't surprise me if it's early as well. So I'm going to go with Gunnar Nelson round 1 submission. I feel like this is going to be a good main card as well. So it's a fantastic main card. I can't wait.
Yeah, another thing to note, Baeza had never submitted anybody before he submitted Takashi Sato. So Sato's submission defense is very poor. Gunnar Nelson will take advantage. Moving on to Molly McCann versus Luana Carolina. It's nice to see Molly on the same card as her teammate, Paddy the Baddy. I really think this is going to be a very close and competitive fight. But at the end of the day, I do lead Molly McCann in the spot. Her boxing's really good. It never looked better than it did against her last opponent, Ji Young Kim. She hurt her bad. And I really think the reason that fight was extended a bit is because McCann got knocked down with a headbutt in the first round. So that was unfortunate. But McCann got herself the fight of the night that night. Super high output, and she looked career best. Luana Carolina, on the other hand, she fought a super competitive fight with Lupi Godinez. Godinez is a strawweight, and she definitely was able to have success in terms of getting control time, getting a couple takedowns. And I think McCann can do that if she wants here too, but she's probably just going to mainly strike. Carolina, she fought Paulina Batejo, and she got dominated in that first round. And come the second round, she turns the tables on her and gets takedowns of her own. Luan Carolina, her strength is the striking. She's got a reach advantage in this fight, but we see Molly McCann fight rangy girls like Young Kim and do well for herself. I think Molly McCann outboxes her here mostly in this fight and gets a win via unanimous decision.
Yeah, this is a tricky matchup for both women. But yeah, as you talked about, I'm also going to give the edge to Molly McCann. Her boxing is good, boxing is sharp, and she's very, as you talked about, she's very good at getting inside the clinch, getting inside the dirty boxing. And I feel like this is going to be the story of the fight. She'll get inside dirty box line of Carolina, and honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if she tries to mix up the takedowns as well. We've seen that in the past with her, so that wouldn't surprise me if she tries to shoot one. But and Molly McCann just likes to box, and she likes to get in fist fights, and this is what she's going to be in. On Saturday night, she's going to be in a fist fight with a bigger woman, but I think she's going to get the better of her.
Yeah, I agree with you. We'll move on to the lightweight matchup between the guy you interviewed, Jay Herbert, versus Ilya Toporia. Taking notes, Lenny. Taking notes. This is going to be a fun fight. These guys are finishers. Jay Herbert in his last fight knocked out Kama Worthy in the first round. That was very impressive. Before that, he was in a tough spot. He got submitted by Renato Moicano. Really no shame there. Renato's definitely one of the best submission grapplers in the lightweight division. And before that, he was doing really well against Trinaldo. Knocked down Trinaldo, had him hurt bad. But Trinaldo had a very impressive comeback. In that third round, he clips Jay Herbert with an overhand, puts him completely out. Brutal finish. It forever will be known as the stop the fight. But Ilya Topuria, on the other hand, he's a finisher himself. In his last fight, he absolutely starched Ryan Hall. Ryan Hall had no answer for the power that came his way. Before that, he fought, Damon Jackson. And he put a wonderful combo together. He likes to mix in the strikes to the body and a vicious hook. Puts away Damon Jackson. We know how good Damon Jackson is. For that, he fights Zalal. Zalal is a really slick grappler himself. He just dominates Zalal, puts him in all kinds of submission attempts. Those are submission attempts that I don't see Jay Herbert getting out of. On the feet, Jay Herbert has a power advantage. He has a reach advantage. He's got a height advantage. If I'm Topuria, I'm not going to play around too long on the feet. Sure, he can rock Jay Herbert because Jay Herbert's been knocked out many times himself. But I think the smart path is just closing the distance, getting takedowns, and eventually submitting Herbert, just like Moicano did. I really like Topuria's grappling, and I think he can find a submission in this fight.
Yeah, I've got to some sort of agree with you. I think the grappling is the trouble where Jay, what we see, it's just hard for me to pick. As I spoke to him, it's hard for me to kind of speak about it. But I think Jay Herbert has all the possibilities to beat him on the feet. I think he can potentially cause an upset, knock him out, knock out Ilya Topuria. I feel like he could do it. But he's stepping up. It's 155 pounds. He's going to be the smaller man. And that might be intimidating for Ilya. And Jay Herbert's a big man. He hits hard. And there's one thing about Jay Herbert. If he clips you and he hurts you, he's finishing you. He's going to finish you. He's going to put you out. And I think there's going to come in a moment in this fight where Jay Herbert will hurt Ilya Topuria. And I see I just see something astonishing happening. It's at UFC London. Something crazy is going to happen, and I'm going to predict it for this fight. I think Jay Herbert's going to upset the odds, and I think he's going to really put himself on the map. I'm going to go for it. I'm going bold. I'm going big. It might be a bit of. I like Jay Herbert, and I don't want to see him lose, but I feel like he has the makings to also cause the upset. I feel like he can clip him early and eventually put him out. But we know how good Ilya Toporia is. We know how good he is. And Jay Herbert is.
After Caceres lost this last fight, Toporia actually took Caceres' spot in the top 15 of the featherweight division. Hopefully, Toporia doesn't go to lightweight too much, because I don't think the guy will do super well. Division if he goes up, but at featherweight, the guy is a real deal. I think he'll be top 10 this year. Now let's move on to the prelims. These prelims are full of English fighters. It's going to be very exciting to see.
That's good.
In front of their home crowd. You got guys like Mahayev Wood, Mckenna, and Grundy here. Grundy is one of Darren Till's main training partners, one of his wrestling coaches, I guess we'll say. And he's fighting Makwan Amirkhani. Amirkhani is a fantastic wrestler himself, a Finnish wrestling champion, and his best strength are his submissions. The guy has a nasty anaconda choke on his side, and he's fighting Mike Grundy, who will shoot and present opportunities for Makwan to snatch his neck. In terms of striking, this is a pretty close fight. I honestly don't know who will have the advantage here. Grundy, he fought Movsar Evloev in a wrestler versus wrestler matchup, and those guys just went out there and struck. He did lose that fight. He got knocked down, but he didn't look awful. So against Makwan, it's really hard to know who wins that striking battle. But I will say that Grundy is the better pure wrestler. The guy he has a really good style for wrestling. In MMA, sure, he fought Lando Manal last time, and he got the majority of his takedown stuff. Or if he did get the takedown, Venata was up immediately. Man, Venata had the performance of a lifetime that night. I don't think Makwan has that kind of takedown defense. So I think we see a situation where Grundy gets takedowns and Makwan maybe tries to get submissions off his back, and we see Grundy get more control time over 15 minutes. Makwan didn't look particularly great against Kamuela Kirk in his last fight. I think we'll see. I believe Grundy is a much better wrestler than Kirk, so Kirk can get those takedowns. I see Grundy winning a decision here.
Well, yeah, Makwan Amirkhani, his last fight was when he got absolutely sent to the shadow realm by Lauren Murphy. So with that knee.
I completely forgot about that. Yeah. He was dominating Lerone Murphy, completely dominated the first round. But come that second round, he left his head open to be knocked out. Tough spot for Makwan. In fact, he might be fighting for his job here.
Yeah, 3 losses back to back. Edson Barboza, Camilla Kirk, and Lauren Murphy. And Mike Grundy, it's his time to step up after his last fight against Lando Venata. Not a good performance on his part. He knows that, and I feel like he's going to really go in here and put, really right that wrong against a tough Makwan Amirkhani. As you talk about, the better wrestler is Mike Grundy, but the better, I'd say, offense. Grappler, I'll give the edge to Makwan Amirkhani, but do I see Mike Grundy being able to scramble out, just doing enough to get out of positions? Yes. I feel like this is going to be a fun fight on the mat. Scrambles galore, and we're going to see a unanimous decision to Mike Grundy.
Yeah, I agree with you. We'll move on to Shamil Abdurakhimov versus Sergey Pavlovich. It's been so long since we've seen Pavlovich fight. If I'm not mistaken, his last fight was against Alistair Overeem, and he was a big favorite in that spot. Overeem takes him down and smashes him, man. Completely obliterates him. He ruins his perfect record.
His last fight was against Maurice Green.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, he absolutely destroyed Maurice Green. Pavlovich hits like a truck. And historically, Abdurakhimov has been able to take the damage himself and get a couple takedowns at times. But mainly, he's a boxer. He outboxed Marcin Tybura, knocked him out. He knocked out Chase Sherman in the first round. but the guy slowed down. He really has. He's now 40 years old. He looks worse every time we see him out there. Against Chris Dawkins, he didn't look awful, but man, he just does not respond well to getting tagged. And if you're fighting Pavlovich, I don't see a dirty Himov like smashing Pavlovich like Overeem did. He's just slow, man. And I see Pavlovich just knocking him out brutally in the first round. I don't see Shamil getting saved by the bell like he did against Chris Dawkins. I think he's taking too much damage at this point. He's just too old and slow. And Sergey's the young guy that's gonna really just put the lights out on him.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. I think that's the logical pick, and that's definitely the way I see it going. I think Sergey's going to decimate Shamil in this one, and it's going to be a good fight, a good prelim fight. This is on the prelim, which is crazy. I was about to say main card, but this is on the prelim. If you look below it as well, there's some fantastic fights that definitely could be on the main card. So this is a good fight. I feel like this is going to entertain the fans, get the fans on their feet. Maybe a back and forth a little bit, I think Sergey's going to clip him and he's going to eventually put him out.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we'll move on to another fight that has no business being on the prelims. These are two ranked light heavyweights, Nikita Krylov versus Paul Craig. Paul Craig, in his last fight, he broke he dislocated Jamal Hill's elbow, I believe, in their fight. Paul Craig has one of the nastiest scars in the whole UFC. He's got some bunch of triangle chokes to his name, and his striking has always been improving. This is Paul Craig's last year competing MMA. He says after this year he's going to retire, so he's looking to get on a really good run here, and I think he has a decent matchup here in Nikita Krylov. Krylov has had so much experience across the MMA career, 35 professional fights. He's been around the block. He's actually had 2 UFC runs. He actually got cut from the UFC after getting submitted a couple times, and he got 4 straight finishes in Fight Nights Global, and then he came back to the UFC, got submitted again against Jan Blachowicz. One of the more notable parts of his career was the 2-fight series with Owen St. Preux. He gets Von Flue choke in the first fight. And the second one, he submits Owen St. Preux. So we know Nikita is improving. He actually has fought at heavyweight, knocked out Walt Harris with a head kick. The guy's a huge guy. He hits very hard, has a lot of first-round knockouts. He has a win over Johnny Walker via unanimous decision. But against Paul Craig here, when you're getting submitted that many times and you're fighting Paul Craig, I think he's a little nervous here, let's be honest. I think Krylov has a shot of knocking him out, but Craig, even though he gets hurt in fights, like in the Keddy and Suchru fight, he got rocked against Magomed Ankalaev. He toughs it out, and it doesn't matter how much time there is left. He can submit you. Just ask Magomed Ankalaev, topping with 1 second left. I think we see a Paul Craig triangle choke here in the second round.
Yeah, I talked about that before we went on air. I picked the triangle choke. I think that's the submission here. I think he loves to scramble, but I see him, dominating on the ground, obviously, and I think the submission is eventually going to come. I'm predicting maybe a second or third round submission. That's where he likes to do his best work, in the second or third rounds, as we've seen in the past. But the only way Krylov beats him if he knocks him out clean. He has to knock him out clean to get it done. As we've seen in the past against Alonzo Menfield, Tyson Pedro, Khalil Roundtree. You have to knock out Craig to get the job done, but I don't see Krylov knocking him out. I think Craig is the better grappler. The only trouble is on the feet. The round always start on the feet, and that's always the touchy part for Craig. But I think he gets him down and he submits him with relative ease.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Krylov took a round off of Magomed Ankalaev in his last fight, so he's not a guy to underestimate. Moving on, we have Jack Shore, the undefeated prospect from Wales, versus Timur Valiev. Valiev is 18-2, fighting out of Russia. He trains out of Mark Henry's camp with Frankie Edgar and to beat Magomed Sharipov. This is a wonderful fight. It's kind of an unfortunate prospect versus prospect fight. One guy will rise out of this fight a better fighter. Jack Shore has never fought a guy this talented. Timur he's a real deal, man. He's 18-2. Let's be honest, he's 18-3. He fought Trevin Jones, got knocked out in the second round. And that's a concern here because he may win this first round, but Jack Shore, he fights at a really good pace, man. A pace that Valid may not be able to keep up with. Shore is super well-rounded, just like Timur. I think this is going to be a close fight. Both guys are really good wrestlers. If you ask me who the better wrestler is, I would say Valiant, but I don't think it'll matter in the long run because he's going to get tired doing that wrestling. And on the feet, it's so close, man. Valiant beat Javid Basharat on the feet. Man, it's hard. It's very hard. Jack Shore, he dominated Ludovic Sholinian. Sholinian was an Armenian wrestling champion. So both guys have fantastic wrestling, fantastic striking. I will go with Timur Valiant by split decision. It's going to be a super close fight, and it's going to come down to the second round where we see Valiant tired in the middle of it. So it's going to be a very close fight. I'll slightly lean Valiant.
Yeah, this is a tough matchup to pick. They definitely didn't give Jack Shore any favors in this one. In his hometown, in his home country of England, they give him Timur Valiev. It's phenomenal. What matchup this is? This is on the prelim. This could easily be on the main card or at the main event of the prelims. It's a phenomenal fight, and it definitely should be higher than where it is. 15-0 versus 18-2. I feel like this is the most chance that Jack Shore has is losing his against Timur Valiev so far in his career. He's looked good, looked impressive, but you're coming up against a different breed of Timur Valiev. You know, he's fought the best in the world. In his last fight, as you mentioned, he looked phenomenal, looked the best as ever against Rohani Barcelos. The only problem we see with Timur Valiev, he's got knocked out in the past, but does Jack Shore possess that sort of power to knock him out? I don't think so. I don't think he can knock him out. But, you know, stranger things have happened in MMA, but I just don't see that happening. I think Jack Shore, Timur Valiev, this is going to be a wrestling matchup. They might as well take the gloves off, put their wrestling shoes on, because I feel like this is going to be a wrestling matchup, and I think this is going to be good scrambles. But I see Jack Shore, the pace, the pressure, the output just being the deciding factor in this one. I see Jack Shore just wearing down Timur Valiev and getting the decision.
Yeah, it's going to be a close fight. We'll move on to another fight that I believe will be close. Cory Mckenna is fighting Elise Reed, and McKenna's a big favorite here, minus 240, and I disagree. Elise Reed is 4-1. Sure, she does not have a ton of experience. Neither does Cory Mckenna. If I'm not mistaken, Cory McKenna is just 22. She fought Vanessa Demopoulos on the Contender Series and beat her by decision. Then after that, she goes to the UFC, fights Kay Hansen, and in my opinion, she won a robbery there in that fight. Elise Reed, her only loss is not at this weight class. Her only loss is to Sijara Eubanks.
Yeah.
Has fought all the way up at bantamweight and had success. So she was completely outmatched in terms of grappling skill and size. So that was a complete mismatch. She only took it on shoulders as well. This is a different situation here because Elise Reed has fought really good wrestlers before, and she's done fairly well, and her output on the feet is good. I like the Elise Reed product. And Cory McKenna on the other hand, she was getting tagged up by Vanessa Demopoulos on the feet. The Kay Hansen fight, she was losing the striking battles. I'm going to pick Elise Reed here as the big underdog. I think she can win a split decision here. It's going to be a close fight. Cory McKenna probably gets a takedown every round, but I think on the feet, Elise Reed will be the one doing more damage with the cleaner boxing. But it's been 2 years since we've seen McKenna. She's been training at Team Alpha Male with Uriah Faber. We don't know what kind of skill she's developed since then, so you never know.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you on this one. I feel like everything you said was picture perfect. Cory McKenna is the better wrestler, but Elise Reed, she's the better boxer, and I believe that she can keep this fight standing. But you know, she's probably going to put on her back a few times in this fight. But I see her getting up and just getting in the face of Cory McKenna, and I don't think she's going to like it. And I think she's going to go to a unanimous decision. But it wouldn't surprise me if this is a split. I think this is a close one. the odds are definitely, as you talked about, a little bit off.
Yeah, just to give you an example of Elise Reed stuffing takedowns and winning the fight, she already fought Jasmine Jasudavicius, and she won that fight back in the regional circuit. Cory Mckenna is definitely a better wrestler than Jasmine, but not by a super high margin. So that's why I'm picking Elise Reed as an underdog. Not a bad bet at all. We'll move on to your guy, Nathaniel Wood, fighting Vince Morales. Nathaniel Wood, it's been forever we've been waiting to see this guy come back. If I'm not mistaken, his last fight was against Casey Kenny. And that was
a close fight.
The fight of the night on that card. Those guys fought at an unbelievable pace in that first round. One of the best technical rounds I've ever seen. Wood is now fighting Vince Morales. It was supposed to be Shalanian, but Shalanian, he's in that Russia-Ukraine war right now, so unfortunately could not make it for this fight. And in my opinion, this is an easier matchup. Shalanian was a really good wrestler, maybe would challenge Wood more, but Vince Morales, he's a power puncher, does not have a good gas tank, does not have a good submission defense. When he fought Domingo Pilarte on the Contender Series, he hurt Pilarte bad. He almost knocked him out, but he gassed out and he got submitted. Against Wood, Wood is a really good defensive striker besides the Dotson fight. Super high output, loves using the leg kicks, and he fancies his Darce chokes and his neck chokes. I think he submits Vince Morales here. Second round Darce choke.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. I think that's that's the way you're going to get it done. My guy, Nathaniel Wood, it's been waiting a long time to fight at UFC London. I feel like it's been ages since the last time I see him fight at UFC. Maybe the last time was against Andre Ewell, if I'm correct.
I believe so.
No, that was Jones Gustafsson. Johnny Eduardo, his UFC debut. There we go.
Yes,
his UFC debut was when he got the Darce choke. He started off in UFC London with Darce choke. And I feel like he's gonna get another one this Saturday. Yeah, I feel like the as you talked about, his boxing, his defensive boxing is fantastic. His counter is beautiful, but I feel like he really shines as well on the mat. His offensive grappling, he's very, very well rounded, and I just don't think Vince Morales will be able to keep up with Nathaniel Wood.
Yeah, I think I'll get my money back from betting Luis Smolka against Vince Morales. He clipped Smolka behind the ear. It was a tough night. I don't think he can do that to Nathaniel Wood. I think Wood gets a bonus in this spot. We'll move on to Muhammad Mokaev's debut over Cody Durden. Wow. Mokaev has a 29-0 record in his combat sports history. He was a 23-0 amateur champion. This guy took the smart route. If you hear any experienced pro fighter, they'll always say have as many amateur fights as he can. Mokaev listened to advice, and he's refined all his skills. He's now a true professional. He may just be 6-0, but he's got more experience than that. And the guy may have that English flag next to his profile. The guy was born in Dagestan, Russia, man. You know what he's coming with. He's coming with that high-level wrestling. And Cody Durden, pretty high-level wrestler himself, but let's be honest. It's definitely on the Mokaev side in terms of wrestling. In terms of striking, better, quicker. He's gonna have higher output. I think he's quicker. He's got the better gas tank. I think this is Mokaev's showcase spot.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. I think Mokaev is going to look fantastic this one. He talked about his wrestling, and that's where he really shines. As you talked about, 29-0 amateur, 22-0, 6-0 in professional. It's or 28-0, something like that. It's phenomenal. The run he's gone on, and I just don't see him losing this weekend. The grappling will be too much for Cody Durden. As you talked about, he was a good wrestler in his own right, but I feel like he's just outmatched. I feel like the Mokaev is the better wrestler. The first fight of the night, by the way. So if you're going to UFC London and you're not in the arena to watch him fight, I don't know what you're doing. This guy is going to be a prospect, a contender to watch in the future. 125 pounds, a flyweight, 6-0. This division is getting deeper, and I think Mokaev is going to be one to watch in the future. I feel like he's got a potential run out the belt. This guy is a phenomenal wrestler. You talked about from Dagestan, Russia, but he holds that English flag with pride. He fights out of Manchester. No, it isn't. He lives in Manchester, but fights out of Bahrain. I can't remember the gym.
Yeah, but as I said, at Durden, he may be a wrestler, but the guy tires when he wrestles. So even against Arishalin, who is not really a wrestler, he lost that third round because he was getting tired of doing the wrestling. And Makhachev, it looks like he can fight 5 rounds easy. I think Makhachev looks phenomenal in this fight. I think he might get finished in the first round, but ultimately my pick is unanimous decision, Makhachev. I think we see 10-8 rounds from Makhachev.
Yeah, that's it. He fights out of the KHK MMA gym. I'm not too sure if you know what that is, but he's over there in Bahrain. I'm looking at who's at the gym. A lot of Russians, so it shows who he's around, who he's comfortable with. But this man is a killer, and he's phenomenal. He's going to get the job done. And at UFC London, it's going to be good. It's going to be a good showcase fight for him. And he's definitely going to put himself on the map once again. He's got a big following already, and I feel like he's going to make that even bigger.
Yeah, I cannot wait for this entire card. I think we're going to see a lot of highlights, and for it to be in front of a big old crowd in the O2, it's just that even if this card was at the Apex, I'd be super hyped for it. But for it to be in the O2, it's gonna be the cherry on top of the sundae. It's gonna be fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be phenomenal, as you talked about. It just adds that fuel, a little bit more fuel to the fire a little bit. But I don't want to talk about fuel too much because they'll start charging us with the prices right now. But yeah, it's going to be a phenomenal event this weekend. I can't wait. UFC London goes down this weekend, Saturday. I'm not too sure what time it goes down in America, but I presume it'll kick off around about 5 p.m. for us in the UK.
It kicks off at noon.
Wow, so you got a good fight night for you. So you can watch the event and then do your regular thing. So it's good for you. I can't wait. It's going to be a fantastic event. Lots to talk about, as you mentioned. Next week we get to talk about obviously UFC London, and then I can't remember the fight night after that.
The fight night after that is UFC Columbus. It is the return of Curtis Blades versus Chris Daukaus. Lot to love on the card as well. And we'll be back with you next week, potentially with an interview with a guy whose last name rhymes with good.
And who knows? I've been in contact with him. We've been trying to set up. He wants to set up sooner, so it could be this week. Could be early this week. Who knows? But I'm no promises. But yeah, I've been trying to work that. Hopefully, whoever rhymes with good can appear on the show. But yeah, it's gonna be a fantastic episode. I can't wait for it next week where we get to talk about UFC Columbus and then obviously talk about whatever happened at UFC London this week. It's going to be a fantastic event. I can't wait. But yes, thank you all for joining us. From me and Oscar, it's been a very good bye. And make sure you tune in next weekend at Tuesday. Thank you very much. And we'll see you next week.